Pull up a chair because this is a digging story. Early 80s. I was doing one of those walks through downtown Rio de Janeiro, hunting for books and records, as always. And in a small shop, I came across an LP I had never heard of. The cover caught my eye first. Then I looked at the year, 1970, and the instinct of somebody who loves progressive rock fired immediately. I have said this in other videos on this channel, and I will say it again without apology. For me, the finest flower of prog is concentrated between 1969 and 1973. That short span holds, in my opinion, the best records the genre ever produced. So whenever I laid eyes on an album from that stretch of years, I stopped. And here was one from 1970, with a beautiful, inviting cover, from a year that demanded a second look. I took it home. The band was called Julian's Treatment, and I had no idea who they were. I found out later. The name comes from Julian Jay Savarin, keyboard player, organist, and soon after an avowed writer of science fiction. Savarin was born in Dominica, in the Caribbean, and moved to London, and there, caught up in that musical climate of the turn from the 60s into the 70s, he put together Julian's Treatment. The band had a very short life. It formed over the course of 1970 and did not survive beyond 1971. In that brief window, it released a single album under that name. A time before this. The record I am talking about today. And it was precisely this album that sent me looking for the rest of the man's work. And here is where I have to correct a few things we used to repeat back then without checking, myself included. The second album, which many people attribute to Julian's Treatment, did not come out under the band's name. It appeared in 1971 as a solo record, signed by Julian Jay Savarin, and it is called Waiters on the Dance. It is made in the same spirit, resting on the same musicality, but contractually it is a different label, a different signature. It took me a long time to find that second record. I could not buy it, and a friend recorded it for me onto a cassette tape. And I will confess that, of the two, I prefer the second. Hold that thought, because I will come back to it. The two records were conceived as the musical reflection of a science fiction trilogy Savarin was writing. The trilogy is called Lemmus, subtitled A Time Odyssey, and he took close to 2 decades to finish and publish the whole of it. The original plan, in fact, was to record 3 albums with Julian's Treatment, 1 per volume, but because of internal contractual problems, only the first came out under the band's name. The themes of the novels are the classics of the science fiction of that moment and of ours. The collapse of Earth, intergalactic travel, the discovery of other planets and other civilizations, apocalyptic prophecy. In the end, it was the literature that made Savarin's name, so much so that he abandoned music. From 1971 on, after Waiters on the Dance, he devoted himself entirely to writing. The album is a concept record and follows the plot, mostly of the first part of the trilogy. There are 13 tracks, and the titles are all characters or situations from the novel. The first is First Oracle. The second, The Coming of the Mule being an important character. Then Phantom City, and the Black Tower. The fifth is Alda, Dark Lady of the Outer Worlds, Alda being another central figure. The sixth, Altara, Princess of the Blue Women, another protagonist. Then Second Oracle. The eighth and the ninth are in fact 2 parts of a single situation, with different titles. The first part is Twin Sons of Centauri, one of the planets where the story unfolds. And the second is Alcon, Planet of Centauri, the planet where the narrative spends most of its time. Then comes the Terran, the inhabitant of Earth. Then fourth from the Sun. The second to last is Strange Things. And the last is the title track, A Time Before This, which is also the longest on the album, at 8 minutes and 55 seconds. Now to the music. The sound of Julian's treatment rests, above all, on the expressive vocals of Cathy Pruden. And here, I need to be careful with the names, because back then, we got them wrong constantly. It is Cathy Pruden, the singer who dominates most of the tracks, and her voice is genuinely striking. On the second record, the solo one, she was replaced by another singer, Jill Saward, whose voice I confess I find even better, purely as a matter of timbre. And for anyone who wants to follow the thread, that same Jill Saward would later become the vocalist of Shakatak in a completely different territory, the jazz funk of the 80s. What holds the record up beneath the vocals is Savarin's keyboard work, always forceful. He works with Mellotron and Hammond organ, and the solos are interesting, beautiful, sensitive, almost always completed by good guitar work that stands out across several of the compositions. When I heard A Time Before This back then, and when I listened again recently, because this whole playlist is built on re-listening to records that marked me long ago, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, some associations came to mind that I want to share with you, with one important caution. Every record I am about to mention comes after this one. So if there is a resemblance, it is not Julian's treatment drawing on them. At most, it is the reverse, or simply the coincidence of a shared atmosphere of the period. I am not claiming direct influence. I am only noting the echoes my listener's memory kept producing. The melodic development of some tracks reminded me of Yes, especially Tales from Topographic Oceans, which is from 1973. It reminded me of Renaissance, largely because of Pruden's female vocals, with the same feel the group would have on Prologue from 1972 and on Ashes Are Burning from 1973, and in the moments where spoken word is interleaved with the singing, and also in the very conceptual structure that follows a literary narrative. It reminded me of Rick Wakeman's Journey to the Center of the Earth, which is from 1974, 3 years after this one. Notice again, all of it later. And there is one more association, of atmosphere rather than melody. Certain passages have a funereal, shadowy tone that took me to an Italian progressive band, Jacula, who many people place close to Gothic rock and even to the early sound of Black Sabbath. The Jacula record I love most, Tardo Payday in Magiam Versus, is from 1972, also later than this one. As for the compositions themselves, they are all good, and that consistency of quality is, for me, one of the marks of the best albums. But the standout, in progressive terms, is the title track. A Time Before This is the longest and the most powerful progressive in its essence, and Savarin's organ work on it is fabulous. After it, the one that caught my attention most was the second, The Coming of the Mule, which runs only 3 minutes and 54 seconds and is still a lovely song. And the sixth, Altara, Princess of the Blue Women, is also very beautiful. But both of them stand out within a whole that is already, throughout, very consistent. One thing I almost forgot to mention, and I think it matters. The record still carries all that psychedelia that was still strong at the very start of the 70s. And that was, at that exact moment, being absorbed into Prog, that atmospheric, aestheticized psychedelia. There are moments of sensory travel here, but they are moments that stand out more for their beauty and their atmosphere than for any excitement. They are, let us say, pleasant to the ear before they are hallucinatory. So there is the recommendation, A Time Before. This is on YouTube. Just search for it. And I intend, before long, to make a video dedicated to the second album alone, Waiters on the Dance, which I consider even better than this one. If you already like this, imagine the other. I will leave it there. I hand you this recommendation of Julian Jay Savarin, a record that is genuinely memorable in terms of progressive aesthetics. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Both times.